Hello, this is the first video of hopefully several that will be featuring a variety of systems from the Mud End of Time, maybe some walkthroughs of some quests, tutorials, and so on. What we're going to be looking at today is some of the features of our world map system. Firstly, I would like to point out that I have something called Holy Light toggled on, which allows a staff member to see a variety of information that players otherwise wouldn't be, such as room 1965. That 1965 is the virtual number, or VNUM for short, and that would be something that a player normally wouldn't be able to see. So we're in the interior of the Sector 5 church in Midgar. And what we're looking at here is a little mini map that appears in every town throughout the game in order to help make navigation a bit easier. The world map that we're going to be looking at is based on a similar concept, except for it's derived from a PNG based image, and it makes the map from there. So whereas this is automatically generated from the variety of exits and the way that the rooms are linked. So we're going to go south out of the room here, and when you enter a dungeon classified or classification of an area, the mini-map disappears unless you have a map item specific to that dungeon in order to open the map. So through this point, we won't see a map. So we're going to go east. We're at the end of the gate here, and we are now technically outside, and one more bit to the south, and we're on the world map. Now, one of the things that I'm particularly proud of on the world map stuff here is I've added to where you can go in and basically set custom sectors being terrain type, or in the case of the world map, the little symbols that you see, to add custom sectors, so that way we can have basically text-based artwork that will represent towns and so on and so forth. So with Midgar, normally, again, players wouldn't be able to navigate over here because of it's blocked, but with Holy Light that allows us a bit more freedom than what players would otherwise be able to have in such a situation. So for the most part, no players will ever really be able to see the full effect of what we've got going on here with the world map art for the city of Midgar. You can see here we've got the various sectors labeled, or the reactors for the sectors labeled based on their number. And this is all highly representative of what we intend on eventually having going on in the upper plate of Midgar. So like this will be an artificial park. If you know anything about Final Fantasy VII, you'll know that Midgar is basically a dead place, and that church we were in was actually one of the few places where things naturally grow in the entire city. So it just seems very Shinra and very Midgar to have an artificial park for its upper citizens and so on and so forth. Upper plate citizens. You come over here, the upper plate of Sector 7 will be our main port for the city at some point. That will be representative of like a helicopter pad and so on, and once airships are in fully, players will be able to land there, and that's actually part of the point of what we're going to be showing here is some of the way that our airships are going to work, and things that players don't have access to right now. That line of H's is representative of the train that comes from Midgar and so on. So I'm going to up my map speed here, if I can figure out how to type it right. And you see we jump, several sectors, further than what we would otherwise. Speeds up some of the, east, and so on. Another thing that I really like about our world map stuff here is the fact that we've got it to where basically each time the map draws, there's a certain bit of variation to the colors in the map. Like if you watch, where we're at, you can see it kind of shifting a little bit since we're in the same place and continuing to look. And that's a little bit of a just small detail that for me tends to give certain parts of the world map a bit of movement to it. This is a grassy field, this is forest, and as light shifts or the wind blows and so on, I mean there is movement in that sort of thing. So as I do this, I feel like that you're seeing the map be a little bit more alive and moving a little bit more. And for the sake of movement quickness over the world map, and to avoid buffer overflows, if you go fast enough, you'll see that the colors there kind of convert back to the basic 16 color palette that is basically default for most mods. So, and to point out here, this is another example of holy light, being able to see stuff players normally wouldn't. This is a buried item that you dig up through our chocobo riding and digging feature. And then we'll zip down here over to the water. You can see some more of the way that the sectors kind of give an air of movement. For me, this is representative of the way that water sparkles in the sun and light and whatnot. So I'm just going to go ahead and navigate over here onto the water. Again, this would be something that without holy light normally wouldn't be possible to just outright go onto the water. We have ports throughout the world where players can board via their ships and so on. So we're going to pretend that we're on a boat, at this point. So if you have a world map and the map book item, then you can do map book zoom, and it'll show you a much zoomed out view of the surrounding area. That should help with navigation, because our world map is about 800,000 rooms, or coordinates anyhow. But we'll be looking at something like this again here in just a moment. So one of the newest features that we've added to our world map is the ability to go down into basically underwater. Like if you purchase the submarine upgrade for your player ship, and if you go down, you go into under the surface of the ocean. And what we've got going on here is, if you look right here, the way that this sparkles right here, that's representative of more shallow water. We've tried to make it to where the deeper water that you go, the darker that the map tends to draw. So you go down here, and that's supposed to represent a bit of a higher altitude with the terrain under the water. This is more of like mid, or really kind of the default depth of the ocean, other than this goes even further. So we can go along here, exploring under the water, which as of the making of this video, we actually don't have any underwater specific areas, but that is something that we're going to be moving toward before too long. So normal depth, a little bit higher, rockier terrain, and then it blacks out here where you've got very shallow water, or actual land, or continental above water, so on and so forth. Also on our world map, whether you're under the ocean or on the normal land, we've got it to where you can use non-cardinal directions, northeast, southwest, so on and so forth, in order to be able to navigate a little bit quicker. Now this was one of the things that I was excited to show as far as the way that we've have this going is, again, this is deeper water here, that's actual ground there. We added a second layer where you can go down, hit the wrong button there, did it again. Oh, there we go. So you've got our depth 1, then secondary depth here, where you look right here, and what we have here is now blacked out because that's at a higher altitude. So this is the lowest depth that you can get throughout the game, and throughout the ocean anyhow. And so we navigate around here, and there's a lot less of this depth throughout, you know, the ocean. It's mostly in our southeast corner, which is where a lot of our aquatic, you know, stuff is centered around. So you can kind of see here there's a pretty good mix of what we've got going on here. Anywhere in depth 1 you see right here, you can go down to the second depth. So I'm excited to get some stuff hidden, you know, throughout here, so that way as players explore through here, they'll find caves, maybe some secret entrances to some other areas, and, you know, so on. That's one of the nice things about having such a large world map, is you can really have a lot of just little nooks and crannies and stuff like that for your players to explore. Got over here, got the Chocobo farm, also from Final Fantasy VII. Show map book zoom again. Got a couple other map book options. See if I can remember the syntax. My typing input window is blocked by the controls for this video stream, so I'm likely going to have a bit of more typos than usual. Book is up world. Okay, there we go. Got some syntax here. Map book. Survey, that'll show just the survey stuff, or, you know, all the variety of things that are in the area. And map book world, that'll just show you the world map stuff. Okay, so for our next view, as far as what we've got going on our world map here, is whereas the other stuff, the underwater, was really just adding a z-axis to our normal world map and using the RGB values in the image file that make up the world map, you know, that draws it. I actually worked in to where once you go up on the main world map, it's actually putting you on a completely separate map that I've scaled down 50%, and that's to represent the higher you go, the smaller everything is, the quicker the movement is. And this is going to be the basis of our airship system that should hopefully be coming sometime in the first half of 2020, if not even by the end of the year here in 2019. So we're going to go up, and since I haven't been on this altitude map since the last boot, it's got to initialize the map grid, which, you know, happens nearly instantaneously. So we're going to go over here and just kind of basically we're flying around at this point. And then go down, you know, you can see the way that everything scales, you know, about a 50% reduction. And we can also increase our map speed. I'll do it by 5 at this point, just to kind of move around a little bit quicker. And you can see here, you know, manually scale down the artwork for the world map for Midgar here. And this, even just this high on the altitude will definitely, you know, help as far as the speed of navigation and everything else around the world. Got the city of Calm here on the other side of Mithril Mines. That's also just on the edge of the Midgar swamp here. And get back down to the base. Not already on the... Okay, that was on the base thing. Oh, and our map just darkened here because it is 8:00 p.m. That's another thing that you know, I like about our map is we made it to where the colors on the map will darken, and aside from that, whenever the players are seeing, you know, their view, it actually shrinks based on line of sight. Then as it, you know, turns into daytime, it gets bigger. Pop over here near the ocean. And just gonna show you real quick. Nighttime, you know, the colors of the ocean change and so on and so forth. Alright, so we are currently on the base altitude level here. You go up one, as we've already seen, and we've got even a further one you can go up. And I've added and mapped to where you'll have, you know, clouds that form and, you know, kind of change and shift. If we sat here long enough, you know, refreshing the map by looking, you'll actually see that the clouds more or less maintain their points of origin and so on, but then as time goes on, the clouds will actually travel. You can see right there that it was over here, and they've shifted to the east a little bit more, and a couple of them have even clumped together more. So every so often, you know, they travel and whatnot. Up my map speed, go around, get a little bit quicker, and just to illustrate again the way that we've got how some of that'll work. More than likely I'm going to make it to where players can toggle the clouds off, because that does make it a little bit of, does give you a little bit of difficulty on seeing. At least right now, if you toggle weather off, then the clouds go away too, but still I think that's a pretty neat feature of what we've got going on here. Got Vector from Final Fantasy VI. Swap over here to Nakia from Final Fantasy VI. Guardia Castle. Lean Square. Town of Truce. This is one of our hometowns. The Guardian Cathedral, nestled in a nice little forest there. Up over here to Baron Castle and Baron Town. Oh, that's true still. Baron's a little bit further south. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's my text tone going off. So we've got Baron Castle here and the town of Baron. I'm going to feature some of what I've got going on here in another video with some of our ANSI art or areas. So yeah, that's a pretty good indication of some of what we've got going on the main world map. I'm not really sure how long I'd like this video to go. In fact, I'll probably cut together or just do an entirely separate video that's a bit more to the point of showing some of everything. So at this point it looks like we're going on about 20 minutes. Temple of Fiends over here. Even without upping the map speed, I mean, you really get a sense of how going up an altitude, or a couple altitudes in this point, really does a lot toward just making navigation over this, enormous world map so much quicker. Karnak Castle, the town of Karnak. Again, the way that I'm just rolling over the towns, can't do without Holy Light, so Karnak Meteor up here. So before we wrap this up, I'll run over here to the Kingdom of Zeal. If you're familiar with Chrono Trigger, this is one of the highlights of that game, really. Just came out of the palace. Oops, Get out of that cave there. We've got, I believe this is Kajar, yep. And we've got the airship, the Blackbird, over here. Oh, cool. Can do that for map speed. Got the Sun Palace here. In Hassa, the City of Dreams. Got the land bridges here. Use that to activate symbol. That'll take you down to the world map. Yep, that's actually Fort Dragonia there. The ruins of Wutai from Final Fantasy VII. In our game world, Shinra flattened that town after the rebellion. There's some interesting stuff to do in there. Reach the edge of the map there. Players won't be able to do that. One of the things we've done in the kingdom here is actually completed some of the areas that were only present in the pre-release version of the game. So there was a whole compound and palace that existed under that in the pre-release that didn't make it to the final release. Something I meant to show as far as what we've got going on with the little cloud stuff here. This is the only place in the game where specific time of day will really make a big difference in the way that the clouds and the sectors and so on look. So let's okay, so we're at daytime here. I'm just gonna do it hour by hour. 17, we've got sunset coming, getting really close to dusk here, and that should be as dark as it gets. Yep. So now gone over to about 4 in the morning, still nighttime, hit up 5, sun starting to rise, got dawn here, and pretty well daytime. So now let's hop over to the Underworld, and this is more of like a Final Fantasy IV style Underworld, great cavernous area, interior of the earth. So this is going to be right up here about the point of entry once players get to this, and we're going to have the Dwarven Kingdoms and so on. All of this is going to be the post-level 80 content that we don't have open at this point. We're trying to get the entire game finished up to level 80 before we add any of this content. And so I really like what we've done with some of the lava here. Reused a lot of the same code concepts that we did with the clouds here. Whereas, you can see the way that the yellow and some of the orange and all of that does, and the way that it's basically holding form but shifting. And that's the same type of code that we've done with the clouds, where you'll have a cloud seed value that'll pop up, and then every so often, it shifts over, eastward. You can see right up here, it looks like that we had it solidify a little bit more. But so given time, this yellow and stuff like that will actually shift in the the magma that's going on here. And then aside from this being the opening areas over here, one of the first areas in the Underworld is going to be a burning forest. And let me see if I did anything toward that over here. I feel like I did, but I'm not 100% where I would have placed out. Here we go. You can kind of see too, we use the at turns on the overworld to represent forest, so that's what this represents here, and we've got the shades of orange and red to represent the burning of the forest. I'm not 100% that that's going to be the way that we keep that, but it's what we've got going on right now. So, and then this will go into a burning mine. Fallout 76 was a bit of the inspiration behind the concept behind having a burning mine, and then with everything we've got going on in the underworld here, it just seemed like it would be appropriate to have a whole forest on fire, and just kind of like the aesthetic. So I'm just going to zip around a bit of the world map here. A fun fact, which are those ever really fun, but End of Time, its previous or original incarnation was known as a Cleft of Dimension, and when we created that, we had really just a couple of weeks to try to have a playable Final Fantasy based MUD in place before the one that a lot of us were on was to shut down. So me and a couple of my friends, we had converted a MUD that we were working on that was a sort of a fantasy combo space exploration, almost like Stargate type of themed MUD. And the original world map for Cleft of Dimension was based on mine and my friend's design for a world we were calling Mythica, which was a blend of Greek and Norse mythology. And the Cleft of Dimension MUD is actually still accessible to this day, even though it's not really actively supported or maintained, and the world map there still is more or less the basic design that we did for Mythica. And sort of in honor of that, since completely redesigned the world map for End of Time whenever we were getting this going, I've used that sort of the same basic map layout for the underworld here that we had on Cleft of Dimension and Mythica prior to that, as sort of a nod and to a much earlier time in the development history of what we've got today. And when I say much earlier, I'm talking 1998, 99 was when that world map design was originally conceived. Also, in the vein of Final Fantasy IV, along with the Underworld, there will be the Moon. And I don't know that this is going to be the final design for the Moon, or even remotely close. This was more just sort of trying to get a feel for the way that we wanted everything to look. And in the same way that we've got the image loading, PNG thing, where you take an actual image file, and as long as it's compatible with the RGB palette code in the source code for the game, it can load an actual map like this. Well, I took a high-res image of Earth's moon and converted it to the palette of what I've got going on with the moon sectors and so on. So what I'm actually running around on here is a text-based version of Earth's moon, and I figure if nothing else it's an interesting starting point, but we're easily years away from getting to the point where this is going to be a concern. So, but it's still a fun thing to look at and show off and so on. Well, there's probably some stuff I'm forgetting, and if so, I may make additional videos and so on, but this is pretty much the gist of what we've got going on with our world map here. And again, I'll probably make some smaller or some shorter segments to kind of show, because we're over 30 minutes at this point, and it's probably more than what anyone's going to want to sit through and watch. I'm notoriously long-winded, so even still, I'm surprised that it made it this long. That's what she said. Alrighty, well, I guess I'm gonna call this a done video here, and hope that anybody that actually sat through this whole thing did enjoy it. I'll make an effort to make more technical demo videos a bit shorter, but we'll see how this one's received. Alrighty, that'll be it.